The time is precisely 1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Danishka Madhavala and read by Chandima Virakon. Headlines. GCE O-level exam candidates will be provided best possible conditions after considering the present situation in the country. SLTB will issue diesel for personal vehicles of O-level exam staff. A stock of LP gas for 2 weeks will arrive in the country tomorrow. Energy Minister says if obstructed, fuel distribution will be suspended. First consignment of aid from India will arrive in Colombo today. President Rajapaksa congratulates Australian Prime Minister-elect. In foreign news, Australia's new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signals climate policy change. In sports news, Paris Saint-Germain forward Kylian Mbappe signs new 3-year deal with French champions. Local stories in detail. The Department of Examinations has said the GCE O-level exam candidates will be provided with best possible conditions after considering the present situation in the country. All students are requested to come to the exam centre 2 hours early. The Commissioner General of Examinations, LMD Dharmasena, requested candidates to come to the relevant examination centre even if they get late. The Department of Examinations has requested candidates for the 2021 GCE Ordinary Level Examination to check the accuracy of details of their respective admission card. The department informs candidates to call 011 278 4208 or 011 278 4537 and inform them if there are any changes that are required for the subject stated on the admission card. Speaking to media, Commissioner General of Examinations requested candidates to check on the medium and the subjects stated on the admission card carefully. He said students will receive the maximum support of the exams department. Mr. Dharmasena called on parents to send the children to examination centres earlier than the stated time since transportation issues are unpredictable. He also called on the public to not disrupt students travelling on roads by blocking them to make various demands. Dharmasena stressed that students will be under added pressure to study amid these challenging times. The Litro Gas Company says that a stock of LP gas enough for 2 weeks will arrive in the country tomorrow. $7 million will be paid for those 2 shipments. The company has stocks enough for only 6 days at present. 80,000 gas cylinders will be released to the market daily. 30,000 of those will be released outstations, while 50,000 will be released to Colombo and Gampaha districts. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara said a policy decision has been taken to suspend the supply of fuel to filling stations in areas where the distribution is obstructed by protesters. Taking to his official Twitter yesterday, the minister said organized groups are preventing fuel trucks from passing certain areas, demanding that the stocks be unloaded at different fuel stations. These groups are also threatening to set fire to the fuel trucks, the minister said. The minister has stressed that fuel deliveries would be suspended for the safety of the transport workforce if such conduct persists. A consignment of aid worth over 2 billion rupees from the Indian state of Tamil Nadu is scheduled to arrive at the Colombo port today. Among the consignment are 9,000 metric tons of rice, 50 tons of milk powder and 25 tons of medicines and medical equipment. The Indian High Commissioner in Colombo, Gopal Bagle, will symbolically hand over the donations to the government. The government of Tamil Nadu agreed to supply 40,000 metric tons of rice worth over 5.5 billion rupees, 500 tons of milk powder and medicines to support Sri Lanka during the economic crisis. The Indian High Commission in Colombo announced that they will be distributed to the needy in the north, East, Central and Western provinces. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has congratulated the Australian Prime Minister-elect Anthony Albanese on winning the election and said the government is looking forward to working with him. The President tweeted that the government of Sri Lanka and himself look forward to working closely with Australia to maintain and further strengthen the bilateral ties between the two nations. To conclude the local news, the headlines again. GCE O-level exam candidates will be provided with best possible conditions after considering the present situation in the country. SLTB will issue diesel for personal vehicles of O-level exam staff. A stock of LP gas for 2 weeks will arrive in the country tomorrow. Energy Minister says if obstructed, fuel distribution will be suspended. The first consignment of aid from India will arrive in Colombo today. President Rajapaksa congratulates Australian Prime Minister-elect. That ends the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And on the main news story, the Commissioner General of Examinations says that steps will be taken to issue diesel from depots belonging to the Sri Lanka Transport Board for the personal vehicles of examinations staff on duty for the GCE Ordinary Level examination this year. Commissioner General of Examinations LMD Dharmasena stated that diesel can be obtained from the SLTB depots for those staff members at any time within today. The Commissioner General of Examinations has requested all fuel stations island-wide to give priority to GCE Ordinary Level examination staff queuing up for fuel and to provide them the opportunity to obtain the required petrol. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
This is Watchlight.
Taking a look at Watchlight, police media spokesman SSP Nihal Talduwa says that the investigation into the violence which took place on the 9th of May will be completed soon. 128 suspects have been taken into custody in this regard. 99 suspects have been bailed out by a court order. 68 of them have been further remanded. That ends Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Headlines of the World News. Australia new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signals climate policy change. Zelensky says only diplomacy can end Ukraine war. US President says North Korea has not responded to the offer of COVID vaccines. Australia's new leader has vowed to take the country in a new direction with a big shift in climate policy. Anthony Albanese, who won the Saturday's election with the opposition centre-left Labour Party, said Australia could become a renewable energy superpower. He is to be sworn in as Prime Minister on Monday, but it is not clear whether his party will have a majority in Parliament. Climate change was a key concern for voters after 3 years of record-breaking bushfire and flood events. Outgoing Prime Minister Scott Morrison, the leader of an ousted Liberal National Coalition, thanked the miracle of the Australian people after conceding. Vote counting is still going on, and it is unclear whether Labour can get 76 seats to secure a majority in the 151-member lower house of Parliament. President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the war in Ukraine can only be resolved through diplomacy. Speaking on national TV, he his country could be victorious against Russia on the battlefield. However, he added that the war could only come to a conclusive halt at the negotiating table. Meanwhile, heavy fighting is taking place in and around Severodonetsk as Russian forces step up efforts to seize the whole of the Luhansk region. The end of fighting in the southern port city of Mariupol has freed up Russian troops for redeployment elsewhere and allowed them to intensify their onslaught in the east. U.S. President Joe Biden says North Korea has not responded to a U.S. offer of COVID vaccines as the country battles its first acknowledged outbreak. Nearly 2.5 million people have been sickened by fever in North Korea, and it is under a nationwide lockdown, according to the country's state media. It is thought to be particularly vulnerable because it has little testing or vaccine supply. Mr. Biden announced the offer at a press conference in South Korea. To end the world news, the headlines again. Australia new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signals climate policy change. Zelensky says only diplomacy can end Ukraine war. U.S. President says North Korea has not responded to the offer of COVID vaccines. That ends world news. We move on to development news. The Japanese government will give essential medicines to Sri Lanka through UNICEF to meet the urgent needs of the most vulnerable population with shortages due to the economic crisis. Japanese embassy's charge d'affaires to Sri Lanka, Katsuki Kataro, said the contribution of $1.5 million will enable UNICEF to procure medicines for over 1.2 million people, among them 53,000 pregnant mothers and nearly 122,000 children in immediate need. The medicines will be distributed to health facilities across Sri Lanka in coordination with the Ministry of Health. That ends development news.
Sports news is brought to you by
Sampath Bank, we present your future.
And on sports news, it's soccer. France forward Kylian Mbappe has agreed to stay at Paris Saint-Germain, turning down a move to Real Madrid. He has signed a lucrative new 3-year deal with the French champions. The 2018 World Cup winner, 23, had been heavily linked with a move to Spain but has committed his future to PSG. Spain's La Liga reacted angrily to the news, calling the deal scandalous and announcing its plans to file a complaint to UEFA as well as French EU authorities. Influential U.S. sports writer and reporter Roger Angell, often described as the poet laureate of baseball, has died at the age of 101. As a journalist for The New Yorker over 6 decades, he covered this game in a fresh and innovative way that influenced generations of writers. But he disliked the poetic accolade, saying that he was a reporter who wrote from a fan's perspective. His peers hailed him for making the connection between sport and society. That ends sports news.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
And on business news, Sri Lankan Deputy High Commissioner for India, Dr. D. Venkateshwaran, says several Indian investors based in Tamil Nadu are keen to invest in Sri Lanka as they see the current economic crisis as an opportunity. The Deputy High Commissioner said he will also talk to major companies including pharma, motor, car component manufacturers trade chambers to have their future expansions, fresh investments or value-added investments in Sri Lanka. That ends Business News.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB You Trust.
Economic news, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
And on economic news, Treasury bills to the value of 90,000 million rupees will be issued next Wednesday. It will be issued maturing on 91, 182 and 364 days. Biddings will conclude at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. That ends economic news.
LOLC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 golds at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LOLC Finance claims the overall gold award, whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LOLC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalization of financial services, delivering a superior customer experience.
The Weather Report.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. The Met Department says showers will occur at times in the Sabaragamuwa and central provinces. Meanwhile, several spells of showers are expected in the western and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Strong winds of about 40 to 50 km per hour can be expected at times over the western slope of the Central Hills, the northern, north central and northwestern provinces, and in the Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report. And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. GCE O-level exam candidates will be provided with best possible conditions after considering the present situation in the country. SLTB will issue diesel for personal vehicles of O-level exam staff. A stock of LP gas for 2 weeks will arrive in the country tomorrow. Energy Minister says, if obstructed, fuel distribution will be suspended. The first consignment of aid from India will arrive in Colombo today. President Rajapaksa congratulates Australian Prime Minister-elect. In news overseas, Australia's new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signals climate policy change. In sports, Paris Saint-Germain forward Kylian Mbappe signs new 3-year deal with the French champions. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.